Hi everyone, I'm Kimberly Deene Langlois of Kimberly Deene Designs, and today I'm going to be creating a couple of alcohol ink paintings on two different surfaces that I'll talk about in just a second. And I'm going to be using some of my favorite Tim Holtz colors here. All these are Ranger products, and I also have some little micro applicator tools that I'll be using for some detail. The colors I'm using today, I have Boysenberry, Ember, Sunshine Yellow, Everglades, Foundry, which is an alloy, and then I have some blending solution. I also have a little bit of 91% isopropyl alcohol here that I might be using for some cleanup, and I'll tell you a little bit about the difference in the using alcohol and the blending solution as we kind of get into our painting a little bit. I'm going to work on two different surfaces today. This is a clear film and it has a little bit of tissue behind it now, but as we start moving along, you'll be able to see that this is a totally clear film, and I'm going to show you how you can use this with your paintings. And then I also have some alcohol ink, Dura Bright. This is a black opaque matte. This is a really good surface for alcohol ink. Both these are non-porous surfaces, so they're excellent for alcohol ink because you can just get it to glide really smoothly on top of the surface. So we're going to start with the black. I'm also using my little Tim Holtz alcohol ink blower here today to move the ink, and we're going to start with this black and just create something a little, well, just on the abstract side. You could use it as a background, or you could use it as just an abstract painting, either way. So let me put some of my inks aside here. I'm going to be using the alloy. This one is one that you have to use blending solution with if you're going to move it. It doesn't work well with 91% alcohol, but it will work really well. It moves well with the blending solution. And the blending solution also helps it adhere to the surface, so you won't have any of the flaking off or rubbing off, after your painting is finished. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start with this Everglades. This is one of my favorite greens. I'm just going to put a little bit of green down across my paper. Hopefully that's going to show up for you. I don't know how well it's going to show up on camera, but I'll tilt it a little bit so you can see it some. I'm going to use my alloy. This is again the Foundry, which has a little silver and gold mixed into it. You want to shake this really well. Has a little ball inside. You want to be able to hear that rattle and get it really well mixed. I'm just going to put down a little bit of that. You don't need a lot of the alloys because they will take over a little bit if you put too much down, and a little bit goes a long way. So I'm adding blending solution now, which you can see is starting to make that alloy just kind of sit on top of the surface and just kind of spread and float around on top. And it creates this really beautiful kind of organic shape. I'm just going to use a little bit of air to get in there and break it up a little bit. And I'm just going to keep adding blending solution just to move this around. And this is really just an exercise in being playful and allowing the inks to flow. And you can take as much or as little time with this kind of technique as you like. I mean, there's really no right or wrong to it. You can fill the whole page up. You can just do a little bit here and there. And let me tilt that again so you can see how it's moving. And I know that with the black, it's kind of hard to get it to show up sometimes on film, but you'll see in person that you really do get that really beautiful look of the metal just sitting on top of the surface there. Now I'm going to try to tilt it a little bit more so that you can see how this alloy moves. So hopefully if I bring that up, you can see that just kind of floating around on the surface there. We're going to put some blending solution all around. You can be really generous with your blending solution. That's really what gets this ink to move and to flow. So let me put some over on this side, and you can see everything's just kind of floating around. Looks really pretty. You can just use gravity, or you can get in there with your little blower tool. Let me tilt that some again so you can see some. It kind of breaks it up when you put some air on it. And you can add more color to it. I really love this green, and I think it's just beautiful. Also, I didn't mention in the beginning, but Snowcap, the white mixative, is one of my very favorite inks. I rarely do a painting that I don't use snow cap, and it also helps the ink to show up on black. So let's put a little bit of the snow cap down. And it looks like I might be getting low on it here. Let's put some snow cap down, some more blending solution. And look at how that snow cap just gets in there and just looks really, has that sort of cloudy look to it. So it looks beautiful if you use snow cap in skies or in beachy scenes. It looks really pretty in water, oceans, waves. And this is, you know, the kind of thing you want to just take your time with it and play around with it and let the inks flow and do what they naturally do so beautifully. Just giving it a little bit of air just to spread the ink out. Let me tilt it up so you can see that again. So you were just creating like a background or something that just looks very, very abstract. So I'm gonna put a little bit more of this alloy down. Little snow cap in there with it. Some more blending solution. And just let that just kind of flow. Give it a little bit of air, let it flow. And this doesn't, you know, need to look like anything specific. It's just, we're really just doing something that just looks like interesting shapes. I love it when you can just let the inks get in there and move around naturally like they do. And I'm just adding more blending solution, blowing the ink back on top of itself and just seeing what forms. Let's add another color in there. Let's put a little bit of this boysenberry, which is one of my favorite colors. I use it all the time. This is the purple. I'm gonna put just a few drops of that in there. And you can let it sit there and kind of organically shape, or you can move it around some. Let me tilt that up so you can see it a little bit better. So at this point, you know, it's not looking like anything is not really supposed to. We're just doing something kind of fun and interesting for a background. So this is what we have right now. And then you just have to decide when you want to stop with it. I think I'm going to add maybe just a little bit more, have it spread a little bit more out on my paper. I don't know if I'm going to add any more color. I like it just being a little bit light around the edges. But I'm going to bring it out just a little bit toward the edge of the paper some. But keep it mostly, I think, concentrated toward the middle. But I want to have some of this just kind of come around the edges just slightly. I'm going to my big bottle of blending solution here because I've run out of my little bottle. Let me just push that out toward those edges some. Okay, so I'm going to just put this aside for now and let it dry. We're going to go on to the next step, which is working on the transparent film. Okay, so we're going to start here with the clear transparent film, and I still have the little tissue paper on the back just so that I can see better what I'm doing here, and I'll remove that at the end. The colors again that I'm using are Ember, Sunshine Yellow, Boysenberry, and Everglades. And I used a lot of that Everglades and a little bit of boysenberry in my background. So I'm really going to concentrate really on the yellow and the orange, the sunshine yellow and the ember in this piece. And I might add, you know, some touches of the other colors as we go. And I'm also going to use my snow cap, the white mixative. and my blending solution. And I'll use my little blower tool to help move the ink. So I'm going to start by just putting down a little bit of this ember and maybe a little sunshine yellow with it, and try to put down just a little bit on my paper there. Let's put a little bit of sunshine yellow with that. And if you're not very comfortable with dropping it directly from the bottle, you can always put it in a palette and just put it onto your paper using one of, your little micro tools. I'm going to dry this a little bit before I start moving it. And if you do this, I mean, the reason for drying it a little bit is it doesn't move as far out. It takes a little bit more pressure to get the ink to move. So if I'm working on a small surface and this is a 5x7, I might not want my ink to move as far. And if you start blowing it out while it's still wet, it's really going to spread a whole lot. So I'm going to dry it a little bit and then add my blending solution so I can control how far it moves a little bit better. So I'm going to put my blending solution along this top area here, and then just pick up my paper and let that blending solution just flow into the ink a little bit and move it around. Just use gravity to let the ink flow, and it kind of naturally just starts creating these beautiful shapes. And you'll get some hard lines and some soft lines, and that's really, I think, what adds interest to the painting is when you get some variation and how deep the colors are and how you have the hard and soft lines there. So you can just keep moving this until you get something that you like. Put a little more blending solution, and the blending solution is always going to reactivate the ink and cause it to start flowing again even after it's dry. Give it a little more air and just continue to blow that a little bit. Now if I wanted this to look a little more opaque, because now the inks are transparent and we're using this transparent film, so everything is going to be very transparent with this kind of technique, unless you use something to make the ink more opaque. So I'm going to put down a little bit of my snow cap, and then just a drop of blending solution, and I'm going to just blow that out a little bit on top of that ink that was already there. And so now it's a little bit more opaque. So over here it's more clear, on this side it's a little bit more opaque. So if I were to lift that up, lift the sheet up a little bit, you can see, hopefully see a little bit more how that looks there. Let me do a little bit more over here on this side. And just move your ink back and forth until you get something that looks nice. There's no really right or wrong to this. It's just a matter of experimenting and playing with the ink a little bit. Let's put down a little bit more of my ember, a little bit more sunshine yellow, just to add some variation in the color. And you don't have to, you can just do one color if you want to. Let's give that a little air and dry it some. You'll be able to see when it's dry because it has a super shiny look when you first put it down, and then it becomes more matte as it sits there and dries. So let's put a little blending solution along this top edge. I'm just going to pick up my paper and let it run into that ink and flow. Sometimes you don't even need to blow it. You can just let the blending solution flow into the ink and create something that's kind of cool and interesting. And I mentioned before that, you can use alcohol, 91% alcohol with this technique, but the difference is that 91% alcohol will pull some of that color away. So if you really want to keep the vibrancy of the inks, blending solution is your best bet. So I've got just a pretty little soft look there. So let's add a little bit more ink to that. Just a little bit more. A bit more. You can always put more color back in there if you lose some of it. I'm going to dry that some again. Put more blending solution down, maybe just along this edge over here. And you don't always have to let it flow into all the ink. You can just let it pick up portions of it. And it's fun just to play around with it and just see what kind of shapes you can get in there. And let me put a little bit of yellow, maybe a little more yellow over here. And I think I'll add some snow cap to this one as well. Just go ahead and blow that into the ink a little bit. I want to smooth out this edge over here, so I'm going to put some ink or some blending solution on that side and kind of smooth out that side a little bit. And this tool, you don't really need to, wear yourself out with it. It puts out really good air, so just little gentle squeezes on it is all you need to get that ink to flow. So I'm going to think now, I'm going to put another little bloom down, but I want to think about where my stems are going to go first before I put my next one down. So I'm just going to use one of my little micro tools and put some of my Everglades down in my palette over here. And let's just dip that in some. I want to dot it off over here on the side so that it doesn't put too much down. And I'm just going to come in and just pull some little stems in. And then that just gives me an idea of where maybe I want to put my next little bloom. And I think I'm going to put it over here on this side and maybe have it kind of hanging down a little bit. So let's try that. Put down a little bit of my ember again. And I'm going to go ahead and put down a little, maybe put my yellow right above it. Just let it blend in together a little bit for a second. And give it a little air to dry it. And the ink dries really, really fast. So it just takes a few seconds for it to dry. And then put down some blending solution. I don't usually drop it right on top of my ink. I'll put it over to the side a little bit and then just let it flow into the ink a little bit. And then once it flows into the ink, I can just give it a little air just to blow it back out. So let's do it. Let's move this little edge here over some. And by doing that, I just put a little bit of blending solution, let it flow into my ink some, create that really pretty kind of organic looking shape there. Give it a little bit of air. And if you get little areas that you don't like about it, you can wipe it away. Let's just say that I wanted to get rid of a little edge. I can just put some alcohol on a paper towel and just go in and wipe the little edge away that I don't like. And then I can shape it up more like I like it. So let me just kind of finish drying that a little bit. I didn't add any snow cap to this one, so I think I'm gonna put a little bit in there and kind of soften some of this up and make it look a little bit more opaque. So let's add a little bit of snow cap and some blending solution. Just give that some air just to move that out some. And you can really get some really beautiful texture when you add that snow cap to your inks. So let me turn this back around. And now I'm just going to pull a little stem in here with my green again. Let's kind of pull it over to the side here, like this. Let me add a little bit more green in my palette. Let me just pick it up so you can see a little bit how transparent this is. And so where the snow cap is, it gives it a lot of texture in there and kind of creates some areas that are a little more opaque. I think at this point, I just want to add a little detail to it. You could use one of your little micro tools and just go in and add, you know, some little dots in places if you wanted to come up and just add some little details in different places. If you just go in with your alcohol, you can break some of that up. Okay, so that's what I have. And let me just put it against a white background so you can really see how it shows up. Let's see, this is just a white sheet of Yupo. So this is what it looks like on white. So you can really see more of the detail in there. You can see the texture where the snow cap was added. And let me show you what it looks like against black also. So if I put it against black, this is what it's going to look like. So it's not going to, the places that do not have snow cap are not going to show up as much. So if you wanted these areas to show up, you would need to add a little bit of snow cap in there, even in your stems. And, you know, you can, we could do that now. We could put some snow cap down in the palette. And if you wanted to later go in and just, you know, highlight some of your stems a little bit, you can always add a little snow cap right on top. Just to get some of that to show up some. And then lastly, I wanted to show you what it would look like against the background that we created earlier. So this is our background. I'm just going to put that down on top of the background and just look at all that depth that that background adds. So now I've got some of that purple in the background that kind of comes into the painting, and let me turn it around this way and see which way looks better. But it just adds tons of depth, I think. I love this layering effect that you can get with the clear transparent against a pretty background on the black. I think that looks really pretty. So let me know if you have any questions, and I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope you'll give it a try. Thank you.